Okay, hello, I'm going to do another review. I'm going to do a Stones album today, and I'm going to do this one, Beggars Banquet, which is my favourite Stones album. So the first thing you'll notice is it's obviously not an original, because it's got this cover, which was the cover they wanted originally, but it got rejected, so it got replaced with, I haven't got a copy of the original, but it's just an invitation. It's a white background. It says Rolling Stones Beggars Banquet on it. It's got some writing in the bottom. So yeah, this album, the artwork is a big part of it, actually. A lot of the controversy around it at the time, because Decca, who was their label at the time, thought this was offensive. I'll get it out. I don't see what's offensive about it. It's just a toilet. And through the inside, this is a I really like this gatefold of the Banquet with the 5 of them on it. But yeah, it got rejected, this cover, and the album got delayed because of it, because they kept having arguments about the cover. The Stones wanted this to be the cover. I can't get the bloody thing back in. So the Stones wanted this to be the cover, but Decca wouldn't let them. So in the end, they ended up with that white invitation thing, which is good. It is good, but they wanted this, and ever since then, all the remasters, re-releases of it have had this cover, which is the intended one. So the white one, the invitation one, obviously drew a lot of criticism as well, because the Beatles had just put out the White Album, which was obviously the cover was just white that said the Beatles on it, and then suddenly, literally a few weeks later, the Stones put an album out with a very similar cover. But to be fair to the Stones, they wanted this to be their cover. Anyway, so this followed on from 1967's Their Satanic Majesty's Request, which was a very divisive album. I've reviewed that. I do love that album, but this album was a return to their roots. And it's also kind of where they became, I suppose some people say adults, maybe, I don't know. It's where they grew up and became the Stones of what we know them as today. This was kind of where it began. And a lot of people say the Stones had one of the best streaks of albums ever. Starting with this, then Let It Bleed, then Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street. One of the best runs of albums ever, which I'd agree with. But yeah, I think this one is the best of them. But anyway, it came out 6th of December 1968, and it was recorded from the 17th of March to the 25th of July 1968, mostly done at Olympic Studios in London. Now, like I said, it was finished in the middle of the summer, but it got delayed because of the cover, because they wanted this, and Decca wouldn't let them have it, so it sort of kept going backwards and forwards. The Stones saying we want this, Decca saying no, and eventually Decca got their way. But yeah, I don't see what's offensive about this cover, really. I mean, even the writing's not that, all this graffiti, it's not that offensive. Bob Dylan's Dream, God Rolls His Own, there's nothing that offensive on it. I mean, maybe some of the sketches might be a bit offensive, which I've lost on the back. Maybe that, but still, it's not that bad. It was produced by Jimmy Miller. This was the first album he produced with the Stones, and he'd gone to produce the next few: Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, and Goat's Head Soup. And I think Glyn Johns was the engineer on this, who'd been an engineer on a few Stones albums at this point. It peaked at number 3 in the charts. It had been held off by the White Album, by the Beatles, and I don't have a clue what number 2 was. Something or another. Which is a shame. I think if this had come out in the summer, it would have gone to number 1. But, yeah. And this is the last album that got released whilst Brian Jones was alive and a member of the band. He did play on 2 tracks on the next album, Let It Bleed, but he was dead by the time that came out, and he wasn't in the Stones. So this is the last album he was properly on. And even so, it's a bit hit-y-missy with him, because by this point, really, the Stones were kind of a 4-piece on this album: Mick, Keith, Bill, and Charlie. Brian was a bit hit-y-missy. He didn't really show up much. I've got a list here of all the things he did on this album. He did backing vocals on the first track. He did slide guitar on track 2. played harmonica on tracks 3, 4 and 7. He played the mellotron on tracks 5 and 8. Played the sitar and the... Oh, I can't read my own writing. Tambura on track 6. That's all he did to this album, for this album. Unfortunately, he'd just lost himself really to the drugs and stuff, which is a real shame because Brian is my favourite member of the Stones. He started the band, it was his band, and yeah, he just slowly lost it. And the things he does contribute to this album is brilliant. But Jimmy Miller, I was at Glyn Johns, I think it was Jimmy Miller, said in an interview that Brian would often show up to the studio when he could be bothered with a sitar, for example, and what they were recording didn't need a sitar. So Glyn Johns would tell him, would go sit him in another room and have him record something on the sitar, but it would never get used anyway, because he felt a bit sorry for him. But and then apparently Mick and Keith told Jimmy Miller, just tell him to, I think this was what he said, I think this was the quote, just tell him to fuck off or something, I think was the words, to put it politely. Just go and tell him to fuck off, which is a bit harsh, considering, you know, he was not a very well man. And I think his demise, Mick and Keith did play a part in, really, but that's by the by. So yeah, Brian, unfortunately, was a bit hit-y-missy on this album. He didn't really contribute too much, but the things he did contribute was brilliant. Anyway, I'll get into this review. I've rambled too long. So it opens with Sympathy for the Devil. Without question, the most famous song on this album, and one of their all-time classics. There's a film for this called Sympathy for the Devil, which was made, and I think it came out in '69 by a French fella. It is a really weird film. I've got it. It's yeah, it's really, I have no idea what it's about. You basically got half the film is the Stones recording this in Olympic Studio, this song, and the other half is just random stuff, just random things going on, which are very reflective of the 60s, but yeah, it's a bit dated now. But the bit of the Stones recording Sympathy for the Devil is fantastic, and it's quite interesting because you hear different versions of it where Bill's on bass instead of Keith, Brian's there on acoustic guitar, but then eventually, as it progresses and they're getting further into the song, Brian just sort of vanishes and they become a four-piece, with Keith ending up on bass and Bill sort of being shoved in the corners on the maracas, I think. But whatever, Keith played bass brilliant on this. But yeah, the backing vocals, Brian is on that. I think it's, in fact, one of the few songs where all 5 of them sing backing vocals on it. But yeah, this is an absolute classic of a song, this. I think everybody will know it. It is probably one of the best opening, in fact it probably is the best opening track of an album ever. I can't really think of one that's better. But it's really, really strong opener, this. And it's also really reflective of the times. Like, when I think of the 60s, this is one of the songs I think of. You know, all you need is love, that's the positive, you know, the happy side of the 60s, the Beatles captured. And then the Stones captured the other side of it in this song. So yeah, really good. So after that, we've got No Expectations. I love this song. This is what Mick says the last thing that Brian truly contributed to the band, and the slide guitar he plays on here is phenomenally good. It is what makes this song special. It's kind of, it seems to have been influenced lyrically by an old blues song called Love in Vain, which the Stones did cover on the next album, Let It Bleed. But yeah, it's really good, this song. And, you know, Mick sings it brilliantly. Keith plays the acoustic guitar. In fact, that's what I didn't say. This album is very, very acoustic. It's pretty much entirely acoustic songs, which is very strange because you don't think of that with the Stones. You think of them as like an electric guitar band, proper rock and roll band, but yeah, it's very acoustic. But yeah, Keith's on acoustic guitar on here. Bill will be on bass, Charlie on drums. It's just a real beautiful song. It's a bit of a bittersweet as well, you know, it's beautiful, but it's also quite sad because it's the last thing Brian contributed, really, and it's quite sad because he was such a talented man, and you can probably tell Brian's my favourite. Could play so many random, just different instruments. I think he was more talented than Mick and Keith put together, musically. So yeah, it's a real shame that, you know, it's a beautiful song, but yeah, it's sad at the same time. After that, Dear Doctor. I really like this song. It's kind of a country song, maybe you would call it. It's just a bit of a silly song, really. There's nothing too much there's nothing too special about it. Again, it's very acoustic. Lyrics, yeah, they're alright. They're not the best lyrics in the world. I really like Keith's backing vocals on this. Mick sings it well, Keith does backing well. And then they do some funny voice about 3/4 of the way through it. Something along the lines of, Daddy, I'm sorry to hurt you, but I'm no killer. And a really high-pitched sort of funny voice. Proper American hillbilly accent. But yeah, really like that song. Parachute Woman's next. This one they did Rock and Roll Circus, which they did about a week or so after this album came out. They did Sympathy for the Devil there as well, and this song. I really like this song. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's nothing too special. You know, it's not like one they ever do live these days. But yeah, it's a nice little gem on this album, I think, Parachute Woman. Lyrics are alright, but it's good. It is good. That is something else about this album. It came out in a strange period because, similarly to the Beatles, the Stones had also given up touring at this point, which is strange because their forte was live performances, you know, more than the studio. I think maybe Brian's randomness, I suppose, in terms of appearances, would probably contribute to this. And if you've seen Rock and Roll Circus, you'll see he was in no fit state to tour properly. But yeah, Parachute Woman got done live at Rock and Roll Circus. Next up, Jigsaw Puzzle. Real good song, this as well. It's really long, this. It's about as long as Sympathy for the Devil. It's about 6 minutes long. I always forget how long it is. And when you read the lyrics, you wouldn't think it was that long. You'd think it'd be 3-4 minutes. It don't look that long, and it's not like it's a slow song. I just don't understand how it's so long. But I really like this song. I've been listening to it a lot recently. Just trying to do my jigsaw puzzle. And it's got a nice, I don't know if about halfway through he starts describing the Stones. The singer's frightened of being thrown to the lions. The bass player's nervous about the girls outside. Drummer's shattered of trying to keep on time, I think, and the guitar player's damaged, I think. I can't remember. Of trying to keep on time. It's something along them lines. I don't know if that's a reflection of how the band felt at the time, but yeah, it's a real good song, Jigsaw Puzzle. After that, Street Fighting Man, probably the second most famous song on the album. They do this one live a lot. Really do like this song, not as much as some of the other stuff on it. I don't think it's anything special, but I do really like it. Yeah, it's really good. It could have been, if this had been a contemporary album, this would probably have been a lead single off this album, simply because the Devil's too long. So yeah, it would have made a good single, this. But yeah, it's a good song. After that, we've got Prodigal Son, which is a cover of a Robert Wilkins blues tune. Just a fast acoustic little song, this. It's nothing special. It is probably my least favourite song on the album. But yeah, it's there. I'm not going to complain. It's nothing bad. It's just nothing great. After that, Stray Cat Blues. This one I think they did live on Get Your Yayas Out, which was their '69 tour. Really good song, this. Bass on it is really good, which is from Bill. Yeah, the lyrics, I'm surprised Decca let them put this song out. You know, some of the lyrics on here. If this cover's offensive, you know, there's in fact, some of the lyrics on a lot of songs on this album. You know, but whatever. This is what's offensive. But yeah, Stray Cat Blues. It's a really good song. Really, really good song. Really like it. Factory Girl is next. Again, another just fast little acoustic tune. They did this one live when they played Glastonbury in 2013, which was, oh god, that was 5 years ago now. But they renamed it Glastonbury Girl. It's just a little bit of a filler, this song, but it's a good filler. Little nice, little fast tune. Change the pace a bit. After that, Salt of the Earth, closing track. This one opens with Keith singing it. Keith is a fantastic backing vocalist, and I think he's an alright singer on songs like You Got the Silver, Happy. But this, sorry, camera died. So yeah, as I was saying, Salt of the Earth. This isn't one of my favourite Keith vocals, if I'm honest. I'd have preferred Mick just to sing the whole thing. But yeah, it's alright. But as a closing track, this song is average, I would say. It's nothing too special. They did this one as a closing track at Rock and Roll Circus as well. But other than that, I don't think they've ever really done it live. Female backing vocalists on here. It's really, yeah, they're really good. It's kind of an indication of the band the Stones will become these days, with all these people on stage singing with them, which I'm not a massive fan of. I'd rather just have the 5 of them on stage. If they could do it like that back then, I don't see why they can't now. But anyway, on this song, it's good, top notch vocal performances. But there's some really nice slide guitar on here, which unfortunately Brian isn't playing, Keith is playing, but I'm not slagging Keith off. He's a fantastic slide guitarist as well. And if you didn't read the personnel, you'd probably just think it was Brian, because it doesn't sound, it's not as good as No Expectations, but it doesn't sound much, you know, there's not much between them. But yeah, Salt of the Earth, it's a decent enough tune. It's not the strongest song on the album, but it serves its purpose as the closing track. So that is it. Beggars Banquet, my favourite Stones album. Yeah, pretty much all round good album. All original stuff written by Mick and Keith, except Prodigal Son, like I said. But yeah, I think Let It Bleed, which came after it, is another fantastic record, as is Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street. And it's definitely the beginning of something special for the Stones, but it is, like I said, it's a bittersweet, because it's the last thing that Brian really played a part on. And he was really just shoved out by this point. And Mick and Keith didn't really want anything to do with him. Which is a shame, because the earlier albums before this, he is fantastic on them. And is clearly the one in charge, but he just sort of lost it to the drugs, really. And I'm not defending him, because, you know, it was his own decision. I don't think, you know, I think these days he'd have probably ended up in rehab or something. And would maybe still be alive today, if this had been contemporary, because he'd have probably been able to get help. But it was all sort of new stuff back then, and you couldn't. So it's a shame, because I've never believed the Stones were the same without him. But anyway, Beggars Banquet, fantastic record. And yeah, if you haven't heard it, go listen to it, because it's their best. It's just an all-round great acoustic little record, this. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I will see you at some point in the future. Cheerio.